You are listening to One Nation Under Crime, a historical, chronological, true crime podcast. Each week, we go through our nation's history and discuss cases from each year starting in 1800. I'm Kayla.
And I'm Leah.
And we are to, I teased it last week, the Reverend. We'll get there. But our sources for this week, Leah's favorite.
Murder by Gaslight.
There you go.
Ding, ding, ding.
Then we have Murderpedia and NCpedia, like North Carolina-pedia. So this case, I'll say, is also known as the North Carolina tragedy. Anyways, but we'll get there. So our events in 1852, January 1st. Very interesting.
The very first day.
Very interesting event. The very first U.S. public bath opened in New York City. January 15th, 9 men representing various Hebrew charitable organizations came together to form what became the Mount Sinai Hospital in New York City.
Oh.
February 16th, the Studebaker Brothers Wagon Company was established, and this is the precursor of the automobile manufacturer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It was a wagon company.
Cool.
It's funny to me. March 2nd, the first American experimental steam fire engine was tested.
That's a mouthful.
I know. March 13th, we talked about this guy. The Uncle Sam cartoon made its debut in the New York Lantern Weekly. March 20th, Uncle Tom's Cabin by Harriet Beecher Stowe was first published. And it was published in book form for the first time in Boston.
And back to Boston.
Always Boston. What in the world? March 29th, just, a banner day for women everywhere. Ohio made it illegal for children under 18 and women to work for more than 10 hours a day.
I mean, thank you.
It's nice of them. Very, very charitable.
I mean,
to
but
give
then they
back.
go home and have to work. But
anyway.
Hey, but at least they made the rule.
That's true.
Because
it's a start.
It was longer.
It's a start. July 1st. American statesman Henry Clay became the first to receive the honor of lying in state in the United States Capitol Rotunda.
Oh.
July 15th, Frederick Douglass delivered his famous speech on, quote, the hypocrisy of American slavery in Rochester, New York. August 23rd. Nope. Just the 3rd, not 23rd. Wow. I need sleep.
You said that.
America's first intercollegiate sporting event took place as the Harvard heavyweight rowing crew beat Yale by 2 lengths over 2 miles on, oh goodness. I know I looked up how to say this, and I think it was said the way that I thought it was. Lake Winnipesaukee.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Okay, yeah, in New Hampshire. So there we go. August 13th, the steamboat Atlantic crossed Lake Erie from Buffalo to Detroit and collided with a fishing boat and sank with 250 people on board.
Oh, that's no good.
Yep. September 15th, Loyola College opened its doors to students in Baltimore, Maryland. Another Maryland. Anyways, I feel like we're in the same places a lot lately.
Yeah, we're up in that area.
November 2nd, Democrat Franklin Pierce of New Hampshire defeated Whig Winfield Scott of New Jersey in the presidential election. And I did a lot of research on this.
Oh, dear.
You'll recall the name. December 29th, Emma Snodgrass. You remember our Dr. Snodgrass that we love so much?
Snodgrass.
Was arrested in Boston for wearing pants.
The nerve.
Her father was a city official in New York City, not our dear Dr. J.E. Snodgrass, who was Edgar Allan Poe's doctor.
Yes.
Yeah. It's unfortunate. But I actually did research Emma Snodgrass, Dr. Snodgrass, question mark.
Interesting.
Just seems, fitting. But it was also not the first or last time she would be arrested for wearing pants. So I thought that was funny.
I mean,
In Boston.
Look,
again.
I gotta tell you, I like wearing dresses sometimes, but y'all, pants and shorts.
I'm just saying.
I mean,
pretty nice.
So I mean, easier to move around in.
Very much.
And you don't drown because they're too heavy. I mean, you could still, but
You could.
But they don't weigh you down as much.
Not
and you
yet.
have to think about the bustles and depending on where, what the fashion was at the time, just all the things. I'm just saying pants. Pants are good.
Our undated events in 1852 in Hawaii. Sugar planters brought over the first Chinese laborers on 3 or 5 year contracts. They gave them $3 a month plus room and board for working a 12-hour day, 6 days a week.
I think they paid them too much.
Yeah, right? I mean, wow. It's wow, $3 a month.
Nice.
Wow. Also in that year, Westminster College, a Presbyterian liberal arts school, was founded in New Wilmington, Pennsylvania. So on to our case this week, November 15th of 1852, Clement Lassiter disappeared in Hyde County, North Carolina. His body was discovered 3 days later, and suspicion quickly fell on Reverend George Washington Carawan.
Carawan. Like caravan, but with a W? Carawan.
Hyde County is located on the eastern shore of North Carolina. As of 2020, it was the second least populated county in the state. County, with only 4,589 people.
A lot of farmland.
That's a small place.
Yeah, I'm thinking lots of farmland.
Yeah. The county was created in 1705 as Wickham Precinct and was renamed to Hyde County after Edward Hyde, who was the governor of North Carolina at one point. The islands and inlets of Hyde County were the first landing spots for European explorers from the early 16th century and throughout the 17th as colonies were being established in the New World. The region's port communities and sea vessels were regularly terrorized by pirate raids, including those led by the notorious Blackbeard. In fact, Blackbeard was killed in November of 1718 after a battle on his ship, the Queen Anne's Revenge, near Ocracoke, which is an island right off of the coast of Hyde County. The area is more commonly known, and a lot of people will know it by this name, because there's a show about it, the Outer Banks.
Oh.
It is, and the Outer Banks is a 200-mile string of barrier islands and spits off the coast of North Carolina and southeastern Virginia. In Ocracoke, which is just a fun name.
It is kind of fun.
I love it. Figs and fig cake are a prominent part of the town's cuisine, and the town has an annual fig festival that includes a fig cake contest.
I could totally get with that.
And fun fact, the book The Wish by Nicholas Sparks takes place in Hyde County. Not a lot of information on Hyde County. It's mainly a tourist, like I said, it's the Outer Banks. And so they said that a lot of it's kind of one of those places that if it's not tourist season, like that place is dead. Like there's nothing there.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting, but it looked very, very pretty from all the photos that I saw. In fact, one of the Outer Banks area is where Croatoan, for the Virginia colony, the Croatoan lived on part of the Outer Banks. So
Have you seen the series, The Outer Banks? Have you watched it?
I haven't.
Okay.
A lot of people said it was really good, but I never watched it.
I only watched the first season. I know that there's a second season out, and I've only watched the first one. I liked it.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people say that it was good.
Kinda
I just haven't watched it.
Like the Goonies, but more. I don't know. It's pretty good.
Interesting. George Washington Carawan was born in Hyde County, North Carolina, in a little town called Swan Quarter.
Swan Quarter.
I know. It just sounds so sweet. He was one of 4 children, and he was raised by his single mother after his father abandoned the family. There are conflicting reports on his father, though. One source said he abandoned the family, and another said that he died when George was only 4 years old. So I don't know which happened first.
He was not present, whether it was by his choice or someone else's.
His mother was known to be strict and was described as a hard worker who instilled religion into her children heavily. Interestingly enough, Carawan was known as an adolescent to be an atheist. And one of his favorite pastimes was to attend Baptist and Methodist services and then mock them later in front of crowds for a few laughs. When he was 21, he married Elizabeth Caro, and the two moved to Goose Creek Island. That just sounds so quaint. Like,
I mean, swans, goose. Of course, I will tell you, I do not want an encounter with a goose. I almost lost my life to a goose.
No, what do Canadians call him? There's a guy on TikTok. He's a Canadian, and oh my gosh, I don't
mean. They
remember
call him mean. Is what they call him.
Anyways,
mean.
He called it something hilarious that my boyfriend always calls him. I'll have to think about it. But anyways, the couple owned a farm, and while in Goose Creek, the couple lived next door to Carawan's brother, Green.
Okay,
his name is Green.
Oh, okay.
Who was a preacher. Later on, Carawan accused his brother of trying to seduce Elizabeth, and the couple moved back to Hyde County. When Carawan was 28, he asked for forgiveness of his atheist ways and publicly converted to the Baptist Church. He was baptized by Elder Enoch Brickhouse. That's a name.
She's a brick.
Ow. Who mentioned to Carawan that he might think of becoming a preacher someday. Carawan claimed to have a vision from Jesus Christ, who appeared to him holding a scroll with a commandment for Carawan to preach the word of God. He took the advice from his vision and from Elder Brickhouse and became a preacher himself. The story of his vision was well known and accepted by his peers as well as his parishioners. Reverend Carawan allegedly thrived in his role as a preacher and built churches in neighboring communities. And he took over as the minister of Goose Creek Island when his brother Green died. I just put, I have questions.
Yeah.
The Reverend was described as charismatic and handsome. And during his 25 years with the church, he baptized over 500 people. He refused to take a salary as well. However, he was also known to live lavishly in a large home on Rose Bay Farm and also had several slaves. But he took no money.
How to get money?
Mm-hmm. By 1839, his wife, Elizabeth, died. One source claimed that before her death, Elizabeth's symptoms were similar to arsenic poisoning. So don't know about that.
Which was very readily available back then because it was used for like makeup. It was used for medicine. It was used for cleaning. It was very readily available.
So she apparently died mysteriously. Apparently he healed from that loss rather quickly because he remarried just 3 weeks after her death.
Oh.
He married a woman named Mary Bell. ... His housekeeper. It's also widely known that he wore this I could not get over. He wore the same suit to Elizabeth's funeral that he did to his wedding.
Oh, well, but
I put yikes. But it was known that he was very lavish in his life and he was a preacher. So you know that man has more than one suit.
well, but maybe it was his best, and so he was.
Wouldn't know. No.
I'm trying.
It's your funeral suit. Everybody's got one. You've got the funeral dress or the funeral suit. Everybody knows this.
No, I don't.
I'm dead inside. I've seen too many deaths. So there's that. But you
I'm
have
a clothes horse too. I mean,
yeah, you are. I'm not.
I have a I mean, I have a lot of clothes.
I don't. I mean, I do. I just don't. I wear the same things. I don't know. I'm weird.
Yes, you are.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm aware. Nope, it's fine.
Okay.
Even through this, his community called him virtuous and admirable for all of his work with the churches and noted his boyish charm while doing it. He spent large amounts of money on his 3 sons.
3 sons.
It is also at this point in my research that I found out that the 3 sons.
Are they all named the same thing?
Nope.
Okay.
They were the only 3 out of his 20 children between his 2 wives to have survived.
Whoa.
I just put infinity. Yikes.
I mean, that's bad.
Wow. Did they die of arsenic poisoning? Anyway, however, many people were aware that Reverend Carawan beat his wife regularly and also had a few mistresses on the side.
Oh, come on.
In
dude.
fact, a woman named Polly Richards claimed she had a child that was Reverend Carawan's and he was dismissed from the church. After he repented and, promised to never do it again, he was reinstated. And the child stayed with the Carawan family until the child mysteriously died at the age of 3.
Oh,
I put ...
no.
from arsenic poisoning.
That's so sad.
Mm-hmm. So he was kicked out and then they let him come back. Yeah. There is one person in the area that didn't get what the hype was when it came, I put to Rev GWC. And that was Clement Lassiter. He was a school teacher in the area and accused by Reverend Carawan of being way too familiar with his wife, Mary. The same exact allegation that he hurled at his brother when it came to his previous wife, Elizabeth, which makes me wonder, why does he have such an obsession with other men wanting his wife? And I put in parentheses, rant about how it is healthy for other men to find your wife attractive. So here we go.
But also, I mean, if he beat regularly, I mean, domestic dispute kind
and
of
you
thing,
cheated on her as well. Like,
I'm seeing a picture being painted here.
So also,
and it makes me sad that he was a minister.
So we've also acknowledged that I am blind to some things. Like I just don't like. I pay attention to some things and do not at all pay attention to others. Like, period. And I will notice when there will be times when I will go like to dinner with my boyfriend or something, or, we'll go do something. And he'll make a comment like, that guy was totally checking you out. Or like, something like that. Like, but not in a bad way, because he knows I don't notice at all. Like at all. I don't notice it.
Same.
And he's like, no, that guy was like totally checking you out. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Now what?
Okay. But like, he always says it like in a funny way. Cause like to him, I mean, he's one of those that he's like, I mean, other people think that my girlfriend's hot. So,
Like
you would think that like most men would be like, oh, like, yes.
But he's not the jealous kind. He's
No,
not
he's
jealous.
not.
And he's
Mm-mm.
like,
No.
yes.
He's like, you don't leave your house, so you're not going to find anyone else. So.
But I mean, and that is, a healthier, like, you know what?
I mean, as long as nobody
She's
acts
attached
on
with
it.
me.
Yeah. I mean,
and thank you.
It's fine.
For validating my choices.
As long as nobody like acts on it, like it's fine. I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. Like, it's fine. If it's forward,
leering,
no. There's a big difference.
Grabbing or something like that.
Big
that's
difference.
not cool. But if you just kind of do a
big difference,
take and then a double take, like, well, she's attractive, or
you do the one
attractive.
up, you do the one up down. You make eye contact with the man and give him the look of good job, and then you go on about your day. That is how I imagine it happening. But
keep up the good work.
Just saying. There are some discrepancies when it comes to this story. The Raleigh Register wrote, quote, letters were received here last week from Hyde, Terrell, and Beaufort counties stating that Washington Carawan, a citizen of Hyde County of some 50 years of age and many years a Baptist preacher lately, on some frivolous pretext, knocked his wife down with a chair and beat her with it until the chair broke to pieces, and then seized a large stick to continue to beat her until a man named Lassiter, who boarded in the house, interfered to prevent her from being murdered, whereupon Carawan took his gun to shoot Lassiter, but Lassiter disarmed him and left the house.
Well, we like Lassiter.
Yeah. So we talked about it before. There's always three sides to the truth.
Sure. But there's a pattern for the Rev.
Mm-hmm. After this noted altercation, Carawan was overheard talking to his neighbors about Lassiter, saying that Lassiter deserved to be shot and that there was no way the two could live in the same town together. Lassiter then sued Carawan for slander and demanded a payment of $2,000. Today, that is $76,000.
Okay.
Carawan took this as just.
So he basically said this town ain't big enough for the two of us.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, they went to court, and Carawan took the story even farther and had his wife Mary testify in court that Lassiter had sexually assaulted her.
Because she's terrified of what might happen if she doesn't.
Even though it was a known lie. The magistrate knew it was a lie, and to avoid Mary getting in even more trouble with her husband, they refused to rule on the matter so that Mary wouldn't be accused of perjury.
Wow.
So they wouldn't rule on it. They threw the case out because they were like, they didn't want anything to happen to her.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they knew that she was doing what hubby said to do because, he almost beat her to death with a chair and then a stick. So, of course, bless her heart.
Lassiter at this time was staying with a man named Dorset Mason. On the night of Sunday, November 14th, Lassiter told Mason that he had to go to the schoolhouse. Oh, this name. At Yep, I did it phonetically, and I'm making sure that Matamaskeets Lake.
Sounds good.
Yep. Lassiter was worried about making this trip because he was going to have to pass by good old Rev GWC's house. The morning of November 15th, Lassiter took his carpet bag and made the trip to the schoolhouse. Did I say he was a school teacher? I did. Okay.
You did.
Okay. I was like, He made several stops along the way to talk to acquaintances and continued his way down the road near the lake.
He made it known where he was headed.
Oh, yeah.
Left a trail like, hey, guys, I'm walking past this house, so just so you know.
Well, and he was also, like, as a school teacher, he was very liked by the community, and he was well known.
He taught all the kids.
Yeah, so he just kind of talked to people as he went along. So, Unfortunately, Lassiter never made it to the schoolhouse and he was never seen alive again. 3 days later, the community realized that Lassiter was missing and they began searching the woods on both sides of the road he was traveling down. The following Saturday, 2 men came upon a dense, mossy thicket and noticed that the dirt had been disturbed. It was a shallow grave, and in it they found the body of Clement Lassiter, quote, riddled with buckshot.
Ooh.
Word spread quickly that his body had been found, and Carawan told his nephew, whose name was Carawan Sawyer. So that gets kind of confusing. And his... This is what it said in the source. And I even put in the middle of this phrase, yikes. His, quote, favorite, yikes, slave, Seth. Yeah. Quote, boys, I must go away or I shall be hung. He then told his nephew that he would, quote, I put this in quotes, give Seth to him if Sawyer said that his reverend uncle was with him all day on Monday.
Nice.
An article by the New York Times said, quote, Lassiter had finished a school on Rose Bay and on Monday the 15th of November, 1852, started on foot with a carpet bag in his hand to go to the lake where he had engaged another school. About 3:00 p.m., he passed Carawan's house on his way to the lake. Shortly after he passed, Carawan left his house and went across the field towards the woods, which lie between the house and the spot on the road where Lassiter was killed.
That's suspicious.
His wife, following with a gun wrapped up in her apron, she returned to the house immediately. Carawan not till sundown. That night, he was absent from home. Then, the Reverend packed his bags and left North Carolina. He made his way to Chattanooga, Tennessee, and lived there for several months under the name of John Forbes. He gave a friend back in Hyde County power of attorney over his estate and instructed him to sell the house, but the friend was quickly convinced that this was a sketch and that Carawan was guilty of the murder, and he refused to do anything for him. Because of this, Carawan had to go back to North Carolina himself and sell the property. His plan was to hide out on Goose Creek Island, where he still had a few parishioners that thought of him highly, and he would have to secretly arrange the sale of the property. One night at midnight, he left the house he was staying in on the island and went back to his old house to visit with his wife, which I'm sure she was like, God, you again.
Yay.
Yeah. Seth, who, if you remember, was
the favorite.
Quote,
We'll just say the favorite.
Noticed him enter the house, and he immediately went to tell a neighbor that Carawan was back. A crowd arrived outside of the house and demanded that Carawan come out and surrender himself to authorities. He did and was arrested. The rest of the article from the Raleigh Register said, quote, a few days afterwards, said on the 15th of last month, Lassiter chanced to go by the house, which stood near the public road. When Carawan, seeing him pass, took his gun and ran through the field to cut him off and overtook him in the savannah and shot him dead. Then took up his victim and carried him some half-mile into the swamp and threw him face down in the mud and stomped him below the surface of the road and covered his body with brush and then ran off and made his escape from the county and eluded pursuit. When last seen, he was at Washington inquiring the way to Wilmington Railroad. And it is supposed that he has pushed for the South and probably for Carolina. I'm assuming they're saying South Carolina. He had been a hardworking man and accumulated some $5,000 or $6,000 worth of property. He had been married 3 times, which couldn't find anything about that, and has children by each marriage. And horrible to tell, circumstances have now come out that strongly indicate that both of his deceased wives came to their deaths by his hands. Mr. Lassiter was an educated man, a very much of a gentleman, was employed in teaching geography upon some new principle, and had not been in Hyde County long. It is to be hoped that the fleeing murderer will not succeed in making his escape from justice. So even the newspaper flat out was like, there have been some deaths.
Yeah.
And
They're
I think
kinda similar.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He has a temper.
Yeah.
There's kind of a history.
Yeah.
Sad.
Yeah. While he was awaiting trial, the Reverend sent 2 letters to his supporters from the jail asking them to persuade his nephew Sawyer to leave town. He also asked them, quote, to put aside that evidence by hook or by crook. And if Sawyer didn't leave the town, he should be killed.
Whoa.
Yeah. The letters never made it to his supporters because the authorities intercepted them. Because, jail. They were used against him in court along with a pile of circumstantial evidence that was compiled against him. Witnesses testified that Carawan was not shy in saying that Lassiter should be killed for intervening in Carawan beating his wife. And others testified that they saw him go into the woods the Monday after Lassiter was seen with a shotgun. The buckshot that was found in Lassiter matched the ammunition that was currently loaded in Carawan's gun as well.
That's unfortunate.
But the most damning piece of evidence was from his own nephew. Sawyer stated that his uncle tried to bribe him to lie about where he was on that Monday. And he also testified that he saw his uncle with the shotgun as well going in and out of the woods. The defense challenged everything and pointed out how circumstantial all of it was. They even had Sawyer's testimony thrown out because he apparently didn't say the same thing in front of the coroner's jury, so they said it wasn't trustworthy.
Oh.
The judge allowed it to be thrown out and the jury was told to disregard it. The jury had only been gone for 30 minutes when the judge changed his mind and instructed the jury to use their own judgment when it came to Sawyer's testimony. Originally, Carawan was happy with the judge's initial decision and thought that he might be acquitted, but once the judge changed his mind, he doubted his chances.
Ruh-roh.
He asked the authorities to have his friends and family visit him in the jail that night to say his goodbyes. He told his wife, quote, I shall be condemned tomorrow, and then they will fasten me up in this place, and you will never be permitted to see me again until I'm taken out to be hung. I'm sure she was like, good. He asked and received permission for his wife and children to spend the night with him in the jail. Yeah. His wife made a makeshift bed for the 3 little boys. Carawan paced to the floor talking to his wife all night about a variety of subjects.
Giving her instructions?
I guess. The next day, Carawan was brought to court to hear the jury's verdict. He was found guilty. The defense requested that the jury be polled, and every jury member responded guilty as they were asked of their decision.
Wow.
As the judge discharged the jury, the events of what Reverend George Washington Carawan did next were recounted by the People's Press, stating, quote, a report of a pistol was heard, followed immediately by another. Carawan had 2 self-cocking single-barrel pistols, with one aimed at Mr. Warren, the counsel for the prosecution. The ball struck just above his heart and glanced, making but a slight wound. With the other, he shot a hole through his own head. As we are going to press, he lies a corpse in the prisoner's box. As may well be supposed, there is intense excitement in the community. So he just immediately got up,
was like,
shot the prosecution, and then
done.
Ended himself as well.
Well, because he knew he was going to prison.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
there is the question of Seth and what happened to him during all of this. Well, in North Carolina, a slave was not permitted to testify in court against their quote master. But after the trial was over, Seth told everyone what he knew about the murder. He said that just before dark on Monday night, November 16th, Reverend Carawan came to him and said that he had killed Lassiter and that Seth had to go with him into the woods and help him bury the body. Seth tried to resist, but didn't have a choice and went with him. This is a little bit of a description, so just forewarning. Seth said that they hog-tied the body and took it to the spot that it was buried. Seth said that Carawan cut away at the ground with a knife, and using sticks, the two dug a shallow grave, untied the body, and put it in the grave and covered it with the ground. Seth was the one who turned Carawan in, and it suggested that he was also the one who pointed the searchers to where the body was located.
Good for him.
Mm-hmm. A later examination of Carawan's body determined that his brain had been pierced from side to side with the bullet lodging near his left eye, and it was determined that he died almost instantly in the courtroom. Following his death, Carawan was accused of the murder for his first wife and the murder of his second wife's suspected lover.
Well, I mean, he was jealous.
Mm-hmm. But these were never addressed as he was already dead. He was buried somewhat fittingly in the same spot where the gallows stood near the courthouse. Later, his family members exhumed his body to have it reburied at Rose Bay. This was not received well by the neighbors, and they protested at the attempted reburial. His final resting place ended up being at Juniper Bay, several miles away. The story has been told for years that his unquiet spirit walks the shore at night in Juniper Bay Point. And that's the North Carolina tragedy.
I mean, guys, it makes me very sad.
Mm-hmm.
Well, all the killing is sad. But, I mean, a reverend, guys, we know that not all people make good choices.
Don't get me started.
And I know. And
I've kept to myself.
Yeah, I know. And we know that, even leaders of the church make poor decisions.
Who shouldn't Snapchat.
Yes.
I'm not going to name names, but they know who they are.
But, I mean, this is horrible. I mean, I just don't even know what to say. It just makes me sad, and I don't know, just it causes further distrust of organized religion, of I mean, and I know that, and it makes me very sad, because not everybody has experienced that kind of minister, or maybe not murderers, but not on the up and up.
Right.
And that can definitely color your thoughts and perceptions. And we discussed that.
Well, I mean, they had there's the whole documentary on, what is it? Is it Discovery Plus that it came out on? I think so. Of Hillsong.
Yeah.
I mean, they have a whole documentary about all the stuff that came out there. And I'm just saying, it's only
it's more than frustrating.
It's a very, yes. And we've discussed briefly on here. I have my own issues with the church, but not in like a bad way. Like, I'm not, out for anybody or anything. But I mean, I just I have very strong opinions on the church, just because of a lot of things that I've experienced. And, but I mean, I'm also the same person that's like, do you, friend, whatever you're going to, right. You do your life. Like, that's fine.
And unfortunately, especially during this time in history that we talked about, if you were of any kind of money, the choices that you had, because you didn't have a trade. I mean, heaven forbid that you do something worthwhile with your life, and not that, meaning, you get paid for something, like even becoming a doctor was frowned upon. Or
it was a very weird time, but it was
either were the air, or you in the army, or you went into the church. And that, sadly, that doesn't...
Or you were a farmer.
Right. But that doesn't mean that the people that went into the church were actually called to ministry. And that's where it breaks down for me. And it makes me, it's frustrating.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah.
He's very disappointing and angering.
Yes. But I mean, it is a lot. And I mean, most of the things that you hear when a story does come out is you do hear about all the negative, like the bad things that happened, which like, I can see, I mean, I can see all sides of it, but it is frustrating to see that. But
someone who's supposed to be on the side of the less than, someone on the side
and not even like you lost your temper and murdered someone, but like you were also just a horrible person in general. It seems behind closed doors. And that's what I'm saying.
You're supposed to be on the side of the people who were on that end of the abuse, but you were the one that was abusing.
Yeah, it's very weird, and it
was common.
Yeah,
back
unfortunately,
especially, and it just. It's
it's very disheartening. So,
but that doesn't mean that all.
No, it doesn't.
Just like and again, y'all know I make parallels, and I recognize that it's not the same situations. Just so we're clear, I was talking with a customer on the phone, and we have opposing football teams, and I'm an Alabama fan, and I say Roll Tide. And he is an LSU fan, and they're rivals. And and I said, but like with Auburn, I'm not an Auburn fan, but I would love for the trophy to come home to Alabama. So like if I want Auburn to do well, unless they're playing Alabama, and he said, "Oh, you don't hear many Alabama fans saying that," and it's true, So, and I said, don't paint me with the same brush as you paint all the others, and that's what I'm getting at. Long way to get there, but you can't paint this. If a person is in this position, then absolutely this. You can't paint them all with the same brush. So,
yeah, it's a very slippery slope.
Absolutely.
To get into, but interesting nonetheless. So we have a website where you can find any and all ONUC information you are looking for. It is onenationundercrime.com. You can find any way you would like to reach us there as well. We also have a Patreon. If you would like to help with the cost of hosting and making the show, you can come and do that at patreon.com/onenationundercrime. Go leave us a 5-star review. That would just be nice.
We would love it.
Do a good deed for the day.
She shares them with me. Like, she's the one that checks everything. Yeah. I don't. And she'll send me something. And it makes my day.
It's very nice. It
makes me very happy.
Please go do that. 5 stars, 5 stars only. We've discussed this before. If you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all. And if you're hearing this at this point and you don't have anything nice to say, why are you still listening?
I mean, glutton for punishment.
Just saying. So thank you guys for listening to this week's episode.
Thank you.
We will see you here, same time,
different crime,
next week. And remember, there isn't always liberty and justice for all, especially between a reverend and a school teacher.
I mean, yeah, that was bad.
Goodbye.
Bye.